How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome to ReWrite. So, we've made a march and it looks like we're getting along with Lucia so far, and we've got some really interesting implications of stuff going on. She's having weird dreams, she doesn't want to touch people, and then we kind of got the kind of realization that it's not that she thinks everything else is unclean and that's why she doesn't want to touch it. She sees herself as unclean, and so she doesn't want to touch other people. But she's genuinely, like, almost seems like afraid of it. And so it brings up interesting questions, because again, we know that there's a supernatural element to a lot of the stuff in ReWrite. So is that literal? Like, was that dream she had, like, a real thing? Does she just kill stuff by touching it? Because that would be horrifying. But then we also heard kind of counteractively, Suzaru said that she doesn't need to wear her gloves. And so is it something that she can control or not? And that's if it's, is that real then? Maybe this is all like a misrepresentation of something else. So I'm not really sure what to expect with this, but I'm curious. But the most important thing we're working on here is this idea that, like, she clearly feels isolated and alone. She thinks she can kind of have a semblance of friendship, but, like, ultimately, she's taken the route of isolation because that's easier than the heartbreak of actually having to confront these issues. Although people have been pretty cruel to her at times, and we saw that yesterday, and unfortunately Chihaya's got caught up in that too. It's understandable from Chihaya's perspective. I mean, Lucia was very, like, aggressively, very aggressive with her, kind of ruined a really special moment. And I could easily, and it's understandable to hold a bit of a grudge, but without context, you know, like, it's one of the things that hurts, and it's one of the downsides of people too. Like, we tend to have this nasty habit of, kind of assuming we understand a situation, without really trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the people around us. Like, you get cut off in traffic. Yeah, it's really easy to just call them an a-hole and just, you know, consider them scum of the earth and get really angry. And sometimes people use that anger to, like, trigger a road rage incident because they feel they're right, and, like, it's their right to kind of push back against that. When I guess 9 times out of 10, somebody cutting you off in traffic is somebody who just failed to see you and was probably terrified to realize that they'd almost run into you. And I doubt they were, like, cackling evilly. I imagine that they were most likely really stressed. So it's a good example of that. Just, like, without that perspective, like, it's really easy to get spun up over things that you don't need to get spun up for. Most of the time when people fault you, it's not out of maliciousness. And yet, we can't help but sometimes take it personal. Anyway, so we're going to try and see, and it looks like Kotarou is going to try and be Lucia's friend. Truly be her friend. And maybe be able to figure out some way to bridge the gap between Chihaya and Lucia, and hopefully just help Lucia in general. So, let's jump into it, shall we? Have you ever grown sunflowers for school, Chihaya?
朝顔ならやりましたけど、何か?
Did they grow up okay?
まあ、普通に。
Did they grow okay for everyone?
運の悪い子が何人か途中で枯らしちゃいましたね。だからそれが何なんです?
Come on, Chihaya. Come on, just bear with me on this one. Yeah, it's just like you said. They were simply unlucky. So was class rep and her flowers.
この花さんの話なら特にしたくないんですけど。
I still like that. Like, I had to say, like, that her name, Konohana, like that's a beautiful name. Chihaya makes a face as soon as she realizes I called her all the way to the yard to talk about class rep.
私、別にこの花さんと仲が悪いつもりもありませんし。
Uh-huh.
あなたに仲直りのお膳立てなんてされても大きなお世話です。それが用事ならこれで失礼しますけど。
Right. It wasn't just sunflowers. A whole bunch of unlucky accidents overlapped in her case. Everyone in the class fed their goldfish in turns, but the day after class rep did it, they found them all floating belly up.
金魚なんて。
One time she volunteered to look after a rabbit, and the same thing happened again.
ウサギだってか弱い動物ですし。
I feel like you're starting to just make excuses, I feel like now. That's right. Either of those can happen to anyone in elementary school. No matter how hard you try, sometimes it's simply impossible to avoid bad luck. Class rep had a lot of unfortunate accidents happen to her in a short span of time.
それで?
The cruel mechanics of society of children made it all out to be her fault. It was because her hands were dirty the sunflowers she touched withered and animals she fed died. Okay, so all those instances were real. Now, there could be, and probably is, some kind of supernatural element to it, but like the idea that Kotarou is going through, which is based on, I guess, what Suzuru told him, is that she just kind of got really unlucky, but took it all personally and decided, I was the reason why these things happened, I must be bad. Ever since then, she's become more self-conscious about cleanliness than anyone else, but once you receive a title in your society, in the society of children, it stays with you for as long as you're part of it. No matter how clean Class Rep tried to be, none of the other kids acknowledged her efforts.
それであの手袋をするようになったと。
That's right. And that's why Class Rep became afraid to touch things with her bare hands. Konohana Lucia never removed her gloves and refused to let her skin come in contact with anything, earning her the title of the Clean Freak. It wasn't because she thought the world around her was dirty. It's because she thought her own hands were.
ルチアは今でも怖くて物に手が触れられない。
Dang. It's like one of those things where it's weird because you can have like such small childhood moments and it can absolutely like rock your whole world. Because you'd think most of the time things that kids say to each other, like it just runs off like water, like off of like plastic or laminate, you know? Most of the time it's fine, but then for some reason, sometimes you get that one thing that happens, that one event or that one offhand comment that just strikes to your core when you're a kid and inadvertently like it kind of sets you on a path for a while. Like, it doesn't have to be your be-all, end-all, but when you're a kid, like, for some reason, those, like, there'll be those random moments that'll just become, like, that core memory type of issue where it'll just suddenly become a definition of you. And it could be, like, the most cruel moments ever. Like, it could be just, like, throwaway thing that somebody says in the heat of the moment or just something to be mean, to be, like, goofing around, and it just becomes your defining feature for a while. And that's what it's so scary about like being a kid is that some things you can take way too seriously, and other things you don't take seriously enough. Their hands have nothing to do with it. I mean, a bunch of kids ended up accidentally killing their sunflowers or goldfish.
運が悪かった。それらが短い期間にルチアに集中しすぎた。
But that's back when she was a kid, right? We're in high school right now. But she's still tortured by some coincidence from a decade ago? Suzuru nibbles at the last piece of her crepe. I have nothing else to do but vacantly stare at the children in the orange evening sunlight until she gulps down her meal. What are they playing anyway? It looked like tag at first, but I can't quite understand the rules. They're mostly likely playing something that only makes sense to them. There are always rules that only kids can comprehend.
もしまた花に触れて枯れてしまうことがあったなら。
And that's why she's acting like this? That's why she couldn't touch the flowers. She couldn't pick up a ball from the flower bed. And she couldn't touch animals. Again, yeah, it's like, I think I mentioned this last time, it's like a phobia. It's like, there's not a logic behind it. That's intrinsically part of the problem. Is that, like, there might be a source of that feeling, usually a very traumatic event. But the thing is, like, trauma comes in many forms. Like, what might seem like trivial to some people might seem like trauma to another. And so, yeah, so she's got this, like, it sounds like at the fundamental level, she's got a type of phobia that she's dealing with. And because it seems unfathomable to other people, it just makes her look weird. She couldn't embrace an adorable cat no matter how much she wished for it.
私は聞いただけだから、その当時にどんな辛いことがあったのか。だが、未だにルチアにとって深い心の傷になっているのだけは。ルチアもルチアなりにその傷と向かい合ってきた。忘れようとしたり、乗り越えようとしたり。
So she has tried.
いろいろと試みてきた。
Interesting. So I wonder what she did to face it.
その挙句、一番自分に優しく向かい合えたのが。
Oh, okay. In short, she feels like she'll no longer kill anything if she doesn't touch them directly. That doesn't make sense. It sounds like she's acknowledging that she actually did kill the sunflowers and goldfish.
さっき小太郎は、ひまわりが枯れたり、金魚が死んだりするのはよくあることだと自分で言った。
Right.
ならもし、悪い偶然がもう一度起こったなら、
It's
ど
like
うするのか。
you can excuse it so many times, but after a while, if you keep having reoccurring events, it starts feeling like a pattern, not so much coincidence. I have nothing to say. Then, are you telling me that she's actually decided to live the rest of her life alone in fear of ever touching another living thing?
ルチアだって、本当は花が好きだし、動物だって大好きだ。ルチアの部屋は、そういうものへの憧れで満ちている。
Right. Her room. And it had all the stuffed animals and stuff.
それで、部屋には造花やぬいぐるみがいっぱいあるって言うんですか？
Yeah, apparently. In other words, everything you've been angry about is just a misunderstanding. It's the same with the cat. Class rep loves animals, and she'd wanted to hold it if she could. But she was too afraid it would die.
それで、猫ごと私を突き飛ばし、花壇にも近寄らないと？
That's right. It's just a bunch of unlucky coincidences again. Hope you have a better view of the situation now. Seems like Chihaya is slowly beginning to understand where Lucia is coming from. Yeah, but unfortunately, it's also one of those things that still, like, because it doesn't make sense, people still kind of wrestle with being able to be truly compassionate about it, but maybe this is a step in the right direction. But her heart isn't simple enough to accept everything just like that either. Phew, so she's the kind of girl that gets quite stubborn when it comes to matters like this.
幼い頃に非常に気の毒な事情があったってのは。
Oh, I'm glad you do.
でも、納得しろと言われたら、はいそうですかとうなずきたい気分でもありません。
Then what do you want me to do?
そういう話は、当人同士がするもんです。違いますか？
I mean, she's right. Chihaya's expression softens a little. At first sight, it may look like she's being needlessly stubborn, but inside, she's already starting to understand the situation.
私も、このままじゃ空気が悪くて嫌ですし。ならばこそ、きっちりと腹を割り合って、きちんと仲直りしたいです。
That sounds good. I hope it goes okay. I agree. I'm gonna suffocate if the vibe between you two gets even worse.
あなた、その程度の理由で私とこの花さんにおせっかい焼いて回ってるんですか？
Wait, you're only getting involved because... Sorry. So she's like, wait, you're only getting involved because you're uncomfortable? It's like, very me. Yep, gotta get involved in any problem in this town as long as it happens within my line of sight.
ご町内のことは何でも？じゃあ、この花さんのお家、どこか教えてもらえます？
Seems innocent enough, but immediately I'm like, why do you want to know?
まあ、お見舞いにでも行ってやろうかと思いまして。
Class rep didn't attend class today. Officially, she's absent because of a cold, but given what happened, I wouldn't be surprised if she simply was depressed. And Chihaya seems to be thinking the same thing.
私も事情を知らずに言い過ぎましたし、責任取って私が自ら足を運ぶことにします。
Of course, I couldn't ask her anything more.
私、まだこっちに来て日が浅いですし、街とかわかりません。あなたが案内してください。
I don't know where class rep lives, but I could always ask Suzudu. She was hoping for class rep to make more friends too. Class rep understands that she can't make friends with the way she is, but she wishes for them all the same. I'm sure that Suzudu will tell us. Roger, wanna go after school?
もちろんです。お見舞いなんですから。
Chihaya maintains a dissatisfied expression, but beneath it, she's most likely already forgiven her. Now all she wants is a good excuse to bring it up. I've accepted the role of showing her the way. No way that could possibly go wrong. Now, where's class rep's house anyway? I figured I could ask Suzudu after school, but our homeroom ended up taking longer than usual, so she's already left. Dang, can't just tell her I don't know where class rep's house is after all that.
それなら先生に聞いてみたら？お見舞いに行くって言えば教えてくれると思うよ。
Good call, Kotori. Ah, that sounds like the most natural way of doing things. Why don't you tag along, Kotori?
私もあの二人が仲直りしてくれた方が嬉しいからね。ご
Aww.
一緒して仲人に徹するよ。
Yes! I think you're mixing this up with an arranged marriage meeting. The teacher gave us the class rep's address as soon as we explained the purpose of our visit. And so, the three of us proceeded to class rep's house. And we're gonna be like the first people to do this kind of visit, aren't we? Class rep's apartment's a bit far away. It's in the opposite direction of where everyone else's house is. Chihaya isn't familiar with the area since she's a transfer student, but neither are Kotori and I.
こっちに来るのは初めてだね。
Interesting. You never really find any reason to come here anyway. Good thing we asked for directions earlier.
あ、ケーキ屋さん。あそこでお見舞いを買っていきましょう。
We head into the small, cute cake shop to buy 4 little cakes, splitting the cost amongst ourselves. Since none of us know what class rep likes, we got a variety. Shortcake, chocolate cake, Mont Blanc, and matcha cake. We did ask for the super spicy cake, but then they just smiled and looked at us like we ought to be going to a mental hospital. After leaving the cake store, we spot a flower shop right beside it. And it's as if the universe itself is telling us to get some flowers too. Ooh, wait, but don't do that. No, that gives her anxiety.
気が利くね。なんだか総合病院のテナントみたいだよ。あ、ここもやります。お花も買っていきましょう。
Flowers, huh? They're standard for visiting sick friend, but I'm not sure class rep will like them.
いえ、買ってこうと思います。
No, Chihaya, no.
いいの？はい。彼女だって本当はお花好きなんですよね。
Cause, you know, that's what you do, right? Oh, you don't like wasps? I'll just bring you a cup full of them, you know? I mean, they can't actually get out and in your house, even though they're sitting in your house and reminding you that they're there constantly. Just, it's fine. Just don't be worried about it. It's okay. Everyone likes wasps, and they're great. They help you feel better, right? Just the juxtaposition for myself, the existential horror of someone walking into my house with a jar full of wasps and just proffering them to me like they're supposed to make me feel better about the situation. No, don't do this. Yeah, Shizuku said that too. I'm just afraid they might have withered again. That they might wither again if she touches them, so we can't let that happen.
そりゃ、ひまわりの栽培だったら、水や肥料や天気の関係で枯れることもあると思います。
Chihaya, that's not the point. She won't see it that way.
でも、お見舞いの花ですよ。妖怪じゃあるまいし、触れた途端にしおしおと枯れるわけもない。
True. She's just afraid of that happening, so she wears the gloves of hers.
それってつまり、食わず嫌いと同じってことです。
It's not that easy when it's something like this, though.
避けてるから避け続ける。だから、脅迫観念になる。違います？
Okay. Look, the problem is that, again, we're doing perspectives here that doesn't make any sense. Like, we're not taking into account her actual feelings. Like, Chihaya's here is technically correct. Like, a good way to confront a fear, especially irrational fears, is to face the fear. But the thing is, you're not going to do anybody any good if you do it with them unwillingly. If you force someone to face their fear, you're just turning something that causes unnecessary trauma into a genuine trauma. By forcing them to confront something in a way that's beyond their scope of control, you're essentially giving them a traumatic experience and reinforcing the fear rather than placating it. The problem is that you need to have her permission. Now, she's not going to be thrilled, but if you were to ask her, say, hey, we really don't think that you're the problem, and we'd like to help you raise some flowers. We'll be there, we'll coach you, and we'll help you understand because, you know, we've killed flowers too, and we know that it most likely isn't you. Is that something you'd be willing to try? You know, like, that's the way you approach it, because that's the thing, is like, if you want someone to be able to confront their fears, you still need them to be willing to do so. They might not be willing the whole time, and it might be a struggle to get them to actually face it, but, like, you need to have a platform to start with of trust and unity over the issue. Not just bring it into their house.
確かに、そういうのはあるかもしれないけど。
No, she doesn't. I'm genuinely getting actually frustrated right now.
小さい頃のその一件から、もう何年も経ってるわけでしょ？
That's not how this works.
彼女だって、そろそろ吹っ切ってもいいはずです。苦手だから避ける。また避けるの悪循環の繰り返しでは、この花さんも最後には社会生活に支障をきたすと思いますよ。
You're right, but in the wrong way. So you're planning to go with shock therapy?
そんな物騒なつもりはありません。ただ、お花ってこんなにも綺麗でいい匂いなんだよってことを思い出してもらえたら。
If she could be soft about this, she could say like, hey, I brought these flowers for you. You don't need to keep them. I'll happily keep them if you are uncomfortable. But I worry that you're gonna push things like flowers away so much, you're never gonna have the opportunity to learn whether or not you actually you actually are the problem. Like, that approach could work, but it's still uncomfortable to just bring them in.
彼女の気持ちも少しずつ整理がついていくんじゃないかと思って。そういうことならいいんじゃないかな。彼女を怯えさせるためじゃなく、本当の意味で仲良しになるための最初の一歩として。これが過去を水に流すきっかけになればいいなと思いまして。どうです？
I'd say the cakes are enough for that. Leave the flowers. If she puts it that way, it doesn't make sense. It does make sense. From what Shizuru tells me, Class Rep's excessively fearful of touching anything, but she loves flowers and animals, and she really wants to touch them. Forcing her to touch them is definitely out of the question, but maybe putting them in a vase with water is alright? What do you think, Kotori? I'm starting to think that as long as we don't force them on her, she might actually, it actually might work out.
ありなんじゃないかな?
Again, like, it's all about approach, and if Chihaya gets upset because what, you want to accept by gifts? Like, that's the problem I'm seeing, is that Chihaya's gonna get upset because she'll say, like, no, I don't want them in my house, and Chihaya will be insulted. That's the problem. Just don't even invite the catastrophe to begin with.
長い目で見れば、委員長も花を怖がらなくてもいいことを思い出してくれてもいいと思うし。本当に私たちが友人なら、それを応援してあげるべきだと思います。
Forcing her to confront it is not being supportive.
かわいそうじゃないですか。女の子に生まれたのに、お花をめでることもできず、動物を抱いたり、撫でたりもできない人生なんて。
Alright, Chihaya, it's a bit of a social tendency, I agree, but at the same time, why does she have to be a girl to appreciate flowers and hold animals and pet them? Frankly, those are some of my favorite things. I've even mentioned this before, like, I have a plot in front of my house that is a hobby I've been developing as a flower bed, because I think it's fun to grow flowers. Like, I like gardening in general. I grew up doing vegetable gardening. I still kind of want to do that, but I decided to deviate a few years ago and do a garden plot of like flowers for the front of the house to try and look pretty and just to kind of make it presentable. And I've had a lot of fun with that. And it's really cool to see like your work manifest. So for instance, like I have like a kind of like a half circle in front of the house that is like my flower bed. And along the outskirts of it, I've planted these beautiful morning glories of like in an alternating pattern of brilliant, like vivid orange reds and whites. And it just makes this really neat little pattern. And they're so interesting because like the stalks will grow up, but then the flowers will bloom and they're like this big and the stalks are tiny. And so like they look horrifically like misshapen, but they're just gorgeous. And every year they get bigger too because they're perennials. That's part of why I picked them, is that they actually regrow every year. I don't have to do anything with them after the fact. If anything, now the struggle is maintaining, like pulling out the weeds. And got the morning glories. We added a rose bush. We have what are they called? Like they're the flowers, the dangly flowers that look like little hearts. We have a bush of that. And one thing that was really interesting that happened is that somebody had bought strawberries to plant in their garden, but they had too many, so they left them on the side of the road in the little planter containers, saying they were free. So we took a few of them, and the only spot we could find for them was in my flower bed. So I planted a couple strawberry plants. They've thrived. They come back every year as well. And they spread. They've actually, like, some of the fruit dropped and planted and kind of grew into new plants. And so, like, now I have to kind of cultivate the plants a little bit. But they come up, and so we get this flower bed, and it's also filled with strawberries, which is really cute. It's so bizarre and absolutely not what any landscaper would approve of. But it's like, it feels like it's my place, and it's my zone for just making something. It's like painting a picture, but with nature. It's really cool. Did Chihaya recall any similar situations? The way she empathized with class reps going beyond surface level sympathy. In any case, there's one thing I'm sure of. Beyond Otori Chihaya's facade of being a moody, irritable girl lies a kindness that lets her be genuinely considerate towards another. Yeah, but she's also really, really... I'm scared. I'm genuinely scared. That's why I'm sure of it. Things just happened to get awkward and the two ended up fighting, but that isn't what Chihaya wanted at all. She wanted to reconcile with her too, and given the current situation, she's still kind enough to care about someone else more than herself. Okay, I do think that's fair, but I wondered the twist that's coming along is that she's actually like, because we know that they're in opposing, like, factions. So is this maybe like her way of trying to gather information? I don't think that would be the case because it'd be super inconsistent with the Chihaya story. But again, these different routes might have been written by different people. So in the Chihaya route, she might have been this lovable, like, just kind of go with the flow person who didn't actually want to fight anybody, to an agent of chaos, an agent of of actual agent of Gaia that actually is trying to like suss out like the location of an agent of an enemy. If she really wanted to make peace with Class Rep for show, she wouldn't have suggested we go visit her. She wouldn't have suggested bringing flowers. Hey, you're actually pretty nice, huh?
小太郎以外にはいいやつです。
Hey. If she were just a bit more honest, she'd be dang cute. Too bad for her. I disagree. You two were pretty cute together. At the flower shop, we tell them we're getting flowers to visit someone. They give us a bouquet of flowers in relaxing colors. Cakes and flowers. Yep, no matter how you look at it, we're perfectly equipped for visiting someone who's not feeling well. After we turn the corner. Oh boy, I'm scared. Before us stands a tiny little 2-floor apartment building, which was probably just built recently. The roof on the second floor is covered in standard greenery of the city, making it look like a miniature hanging garden. It's actually quite a nice place.
地図によるなら、あのアパートだね。
Does she live alone or something? Looks like a studio apartment.
ですね。一人で病気は辛いはず。やっぱり来て正解でしたね。
I wonder what that situation is. Like, is her condition real or imagined, causing stress with her home, and that's her, like, it was like maybe, like, I'm guessing it causes stress for her family, and maybe she offered to live alone, and they agreed? Like, they say it's because they want her to learn independence, but, like, they all know the reality is that she's, unquote, a burden. At least that's how she feels, which is really sad.
雑炊でも作ってあげたら喜ぶかね。さっきスーパーがあったから戻って少し買い物していく?
I would say let's go now. And if she looks really sick, like she's struggling to get out of bed and like, you know, really, like got that like really like the heavy fever, then I would go out, get porridge and come back. But if she's just feeling a little under the weather, that's a bit overkill. She'd probably be pretty happy with that, but it might be a bit much if the three of us just showed up and did something like that. I think it'd be better if we just popped in, checked on how she's doing, snacked on cakes, and head out.
そうですね。それで軽く仲直りってのが理想的なシナリオだと思います。204号室。2階の一番奥みたいだね。
We head up the stairs and head to the room. Every other room on the floor is empty. Might feel a little lonely, but there's some apartments that tend to have thin walls anyway. Not having neighbors might actually feel liberating.
204、この花。ここですね。
Oh boy, I'm nervous. So this is Class Rep's room, eh? Her entrance has a stylish-looking nameplate and a small planter by the door with some artificial flowers tastefully placed. This is just what Suzaru told me. She really does like flowers. I suppose artificial ones don't have the risk of wilting, so those are safer for her. Knowing her, she'd probably immediately avoid Chihaya because she's holding a bouquet of flowers. Yeah, I agree, which is why I said flowers were a bad idea. Chihaya hopes Class Rep can rid herself of the fear of flowers. All I can hope is and pray that Chihaya's sentiments can get through to her.
呼び鈴、押すよ。
I think that, like, I'm so convinced this is gonna go badly, because, like, the wind-up is already, like, it's already doing this, like, just so the reader knows, the intention is good. It's like, yeah, it's gonna go bad. Ring that thing hard.
普通にポチリで結構です。じゃあ、グリグリポチリの方向で。あれ?
We haven't even pressed the doorbell yet, but I can hear some shuffling from behind the door. Huh? Don't tell me she's actually on her way out and we're just running into each other. Hey! The door opens and it really does look like Class Rep's about to head out. I've only ever seen her at school, so this is refreshing to see her in an outfit other than a school uniform. You sure, buddy? It looks like a uniform still. Actually looks really nice, but also looks like she's gonna go work at the mortuary. The gothic-style long jacket she's wearing gives her a mature look that suits her well. If Kotori or Chihaya tried the same look, they probably couldn't pull it off. Class Rep herself goes wide-eyed, seeing 3 whole people right in front of her door.
なんだ? Tennouji Kotarou? 神戸さんに、大鳥さんまで。
So, Class Rep, sorry we just showed up. How are you feeling?
顔色はそんなに悪くないみたいだね。薬を飲んだから平気だ。みたいですね。 外出しようという気になるくらいには元気になったみたいです。
Okay.
これは何の真似か。
Glassrap notices the bouquet of flowers and the box of cakes that we have and is taken aback. We're here to visit. We got you some cake, flowers from Chihaya too. Yeah, I know, right? Like, I should be happy. As I expected, Glassrap's expression clouds over for just an instant. We knew she would react like this. That's why Chihaya immediately reassures her that she didn't bring them to offend her.
気持ちは嬉しいが。お花、本当は好きだって聞きました。玄関の中もすごく綺麗に飾ってあるじゃないですか。
The entryway behind Glassrap is neat and tidy. Artificial flowers are beautifully arranged there too. More than anything, it shows just how much she really loves flowers. After seeing all this, no one would possibly believe her if she were to say she can't go near flowers because she is afraid. Unfortunately, she backs away, as if pressured by the living bouquet of flowers that Chihaya is holding.
やっぱり生のお花は苦手かな。昔いろいろあったらしいってのも聞きました。それ以来お花や動物に触れるのが怖いってのも。
I know the intention's good, but she also probably was like, why are people talking about my past? It's like the worst thing you could do.
どうしてそれを。
Glassrap looks flustered, seeing someone who knows about her past even though she's never told anyone about it. But that's exactly why Chihaya smiles encouragingly.
ひまわりくらい偶然枯れることだってあります。私だって昔かっこつけて知識もないのにバラを育てようとして全部枯らしちゃったことありますもの。生ものを傷ませちゃったこともあるし、腐らせて大変なことにしちゃったこともあります。でもそれらは不慣れで不器用な幼少時代には誰もが一度は経験する失敗じゃないでしょうか。言いたいことはわかるか。そういうのを生やし立てるムカつく男子とかがいるのは知ってます。ささやかな失敗をそういう連中に生やし立てられ、この花さんは傷つけられたに違いない。
Alright, here's the other problem too. Like, I didn't think about this, but this is absolutely part of it too. Is there's also like the idea of like when you become aware of something like a phobia, there's a tendency to assume, oh, because you had a traumatic experience, you're afraid of this. And then you feel like you understand everything. It honestly might not have been people making fun of her that caused the problem. It could be. But the assumption that, oh, other people made you feel guilty about it. Honestly, there's plenty of people like me who are quite capable of making ourselves feel so horrible about things that we do that we don't need any outside influence to make things traumatic. We can be our own worst enemy at times. Chizuru told me, Glassrap. She told me about what happened in the past with the sunflowers and the goldfish. Those misfortunes just coincidentally happened one after another, so everyone around you said all those things, and now you're afraid to touch anything.
そうか。しずるがか。あ、私たちはね、猫の時のこととか、ボールの時のこととかを怒ってなんか全然いないんだよ。事情がわからない時は、私もカチンときましたが、この花さんにも同情すべき事情があったことがわかり、
Oh. There we go. You came all the way here to make up with her.
私のセリフを勝手に奪わないでください。そういうことです。私たちは全然怒ってないんだよ。そして委員長のその事情をとても気の毒に思ってるの。
We feel bad for you. It's like, that's the thing. It's like, now she's gonna feel like, great, now they pity me. In a lot of situations like that can kind of be nice, but also just is depressing.
本当はお花も大好きなのに怖くて触れられないなんて本当にかわいそうだなって思って。
Interrupting Kotori, Chihaya thrusts the bouquet of flowers. Oh, stop! Don't! Chihaya gives a strong, reassuring smile.
大丈夫。触れても絶対に枯れません。私が保証します。気持ちは嬉しいが。この花さんが触れてこの花が枯れるようなことがあったらそれはこの花さんのせいじゃありません。
And actually, okay, here's the problem too. Again, like, this is where we get the blur. Like, if this were just a phobia, there's a bit of reality to that. But it's also because this is ReWrite, there's likely an actual reason for it. And so in that case, it might actually be her fault because well, not her fault, but like there might be something actually causing it.
すぐ枯れちゃうような花を売りつけやがったあの花屋のせいです。その際はきっちりと制裁しますので大丈夫です。
Chihaya even swings her fist around the air to prove it. She's definitely playing for the comedic effect. Chihaya can be pretty awkward in her own way too. She must be trying to soften the tension of the air by trying to get class rep to accept the bouquet. Perhaps that could be the symbol of the two making up, as well as serving as a small step for class rep to finally break away from her awful past. This is not the way you should do it, though! Or so Chihaya hopes, from the bottom of her heart.
ありがとう。気持ちはありがたく受け取るが。ほら、大丈夫だってば。
Oh, Chihaya makes one last push, thrusting the beautiful bouquet into class rep's chest. It's just like that day, but with flowers instead of a cat. It's just like we're redoing it.
ね、お花、枯れたりなんかしな。
Flutter. A petal breaks off, dancing in the air. There's a frantic beauty about it for just a split second. Are you serious? It is. Oh no. But past that beauty, the expression class rep makes goes from beyond sadness and more into bitterness. The bouquet of flowers falls apart, scattering to the floor. Crap! On a cracker! Chihaya is pushed away and bumps into me. If I weren't here, she probably would have fallen to the floor. The box of cakes that Kotori is holding snags against class rep's falling hand. It tumbles to the floor, leaving its contents mercilessly squashed. Without even opening the box, I can already imagine what the once exquisite cakes look like now. Indeed, this is a redo of that day. In the end, history has repeated itself. There's a clear remorse on both their faces. For class rep, this is supposed to have been a chance for the two to reconcile. But she still needs some time to accept the bouquet of flowers that had been suddenly thrust upon her. It should have been the same for Chihaya. That bouquet of flowers had been accepted, that would have been the symbol of the two making peace with each other. But that was nothing more than a rule she created within herself. I knew it! I knew it! Chihaya knew full well class rep had a fear of touching flowers, however she misread just how deep class rep's wounds were. Just drop the bouquet of flowers in class rep's hand and then make peace with one another? Rather than being a shallow act of contrition, she may have wanted to imply how simple it would be for the two of them to reconcile. That's why Chihaya didn't take it too seriously and just pushed the flowers onto class rep. Their awkwardness has led to this misunderstanding. I need to think of a good follow-up, but dang it, I can't think of a way to say. Look, I get it. Came with the excuse that this will turn real bad. I know what makes these two tick. Unless I do something, they're gonna try and hide their awkwardness, sadness, and regret through getting angry. Too late.
ああ、そうですか。そうでしたよね。お花、大嫌いでしたもんね。余計なお世話でしたね。ほんとすみません。
Will you both shut up, please?
ああ、余計なお世話だ。嫌いだと言ってる。花も動物も嫌いだと最初からずっと言ってる。いつ私が花を好きだなんて言ったのか。
そうですよね。言ってませんね。すみません。大嫌いなお花を押し付けて、本当にすみませんでした。お花も動物も人間も、何もかも嫌いなら、おとなしく閉じこもって、二度と表に出ないでください。
I'm genuinely so. Is anyone gonna see this coming, you idiots?
私は今日一日そうしていた。勝手にやってきたのはそっちだ。
やめて。どうして二人とも心にもないことを言い合うの？二人とも仲直りしたいはずなのに。
Thank you, Kotori.
そうですね。最初はそのつもりでしたが、きれいさっぱりその気持ちもなくなりました。
元より大鳥さんと仲が良かった覚えもない。余計なおせっかいを焼かれる覚えなどこれっぽっちも覚えがない。
そうですね。仲が良かった覚え、私もありません。あなたは一人ぼっちで委員長ぶって威張ってればいいじゃないですか。友達なんて一人もいないくせに。
Fetch me. Good grief, why you gotta be so mean? Oh, you dummy. Even Chihaya's expression makes obvious she realized she said too much and clamps her mouth shut. That's her tendency to be a clean freak. She doesn't have a single friend in the entire school, with the exception of Suzaru. Can you just smack them both in the head real quick and be like, look, get angry at me for a second, okay? We can actually talk about this. Even though she has an inkling, which is why we never touched the topic. Dang it, Chihaya. Even if she apologizes for it now, perhaps the wound won't be as deep. But right now, her blood's rushing to her head. I can't expect Chihaya to do that. That's why you should say something, you idiot! After saying something that she can't take back, she grimaces.
どうもお邪魔しました。帰ります。さようなら。金輪際さようなら。
Fetch me.
ああ、さようなら。帰れ帰れ。二度と来るな。大鳥千早。
Chihaya turns around and leaves, her heels stomping down the stairs. Class rep watches in total silence, then glares at us with a look that says she has nothing more to say. Her expression is reminiscent of a little animal making its hair stand on end to intimidate its opponent. Faced with that, neither Kotori nor I can think of what to say. Class rep.
ここへは二度と来るな。
Leaving us with those words, class rep heads back in her house. The bang of the door slamming shut is the very sound of her rejecting us. All that's left of the cake box has been cruelly tumbled and crushed, and it remains of beautiful flowers that have been scattered and trampled underfoot. That went well.
今はそっとしておくしかないね。
I hesitate on whether or not I should press the doorbell, but Kotori answers with a small shake of her head. She bends over, gathers the flowers that have been scattered, rearranges them into a bouquet, places them by the door. The cakes are totally squashed. We can't just leave them here. We look at Class Rep's nameplate once more, completely at a loss of what we should do. Just as we're about to take our leave, we hear the clatter of shoes against the stairs. Did Chihaya come back? Nope, this person looks far too small. It's Shizuru. Yeah, she was probably watching us.
小太郎、小鳥、どうしてここに？
About that. After seeing the flattened cake box in my hand, Shizuru probably sensed that something must have happened. After hearing about it from me and Kotori, Shizuru believes a small sigh and shrugs.
気持ちは嬉しいが、ルチアにそれは辛い。
Fetch. Thank you for saying it this way. I figured. Guess we came on a bit too strong.
ルチアは私がなだめておく。小太郎たちは地位を頼む。
Yeah, thanks.
しずちゃんはすごいね。委員長が、この花さんが唯一心を許してるんだね。私は特別だ。だが、特別じゃないから友人になっちゃいけないということはない。
I like that. I'm special, aka I'm part of Guardian. She's literally special, but you don't have to be special to be her friend. Class rep and Shizuru, huh? How is this that these two can get along so well when they're not only from different classes, but different grade levels? Anyway, with things as they are, she certainly is the only one who can pacify Class Rep right now. Got it. Class Rep's in your hands, Miss Disciplinary Officer. She verbalizes her acknowledgement and to accompany her nod. Guess we'll have to count on her. Looks like Shizuru also understands Class Rep can't keep going on like this. Given that we can only leave it to Shizuru, heading home is the only thing left for us to do. I'm depressed. I don't know about you. I'm depressed. I decide to hear Chihaya out when we meet again at school tomorrow, but right as the thought crosses my mind, I easily spot her in the park on the way back. She's on the swing, looking glum with her gaze on the ground. Without even talking to her, I can already understand what's going on in her head.
Chi-chan.
Even after Kotori calls out to her, Chihaya doesn't answer, despite the fact she must have heard her. However, judging by the way she looks, I think there's still hope for her. If she really does hate Class Rep, then she wouldn't be feeling so down about everything that just happened. Well, that sure sucks, huh? What do we do now? I open up with a lighthearted remark and sit on the other swing. Most of the time, when people blatantly exude an aura screaming, "Leave me alone," the opposite is true. I'm sure even Chihaya would want to talk with someone to clear her mind. Looks like Kotori gets it too. Until Chihaya talks with us, the two of us wait silently, watching the twilight sky.
最低です。
Don't get too mad. I'm sure Class Rep didn't really mean to say all that.
違いますよ。私がです。
Yes! With her head still cast down, Chihaya barks at me. I can see tears dripping down onto her skirt.
私、最低です。
Unfortunately, yes. In this case, yes. You shouldn't have bought the flowers, you shouldn't have shoved them in her face, and you shouldn't have said all those terrible things. Like, I understand that Lucia is not the easiest person to work with, especially that, but you also gotta remember, like, you should, when it comes to confronting a phobia, you need to treat whatever that phobic item is for that person as if you're approaching them with like a, I don't know, like a piranha or shark, like in your hands. Like, it's something that genuinely causes them fear, discomfort. And shoving it into their face is just gonna kick in a flight or fight response. Of course she's gonna be super stressed, and Lucy's gonna be in a position where she's likely to say or do things that she would never normally do. But then to respond to that with such a horrific response, like it's unfortunately, like, if there's anyone who's really at fault in the situation, it is Chihaya. But it's not like I can really say like, oh, you're an evil or terrible person because of it. I just think she wasn't thinking things through. She's trying to push her own narrative, her own, like, desires. She's forcing them on somebody else. Because for her, it's so silly to be afraid of flowers, that it genuinely makes more sense that if you just give her flowers, she'll just accept them because, like, obviously they're not going to hurt you. But, like, that's the thing, is, like, that's the flaw of the logic of assuming you understand how somebody else feels just because it's how you feel. It's so dangerous to assume that you understand what other people are thinking just because you can, associate. But, like, there's always that barrier of that somebody else's, like, it's actually an interesting problem in psychology, in the world of psychology where they're trying to do studies. There's the issue they call the other brains problem. And that's the fact that no matter how hard you try, it's almost impossible to gain proper data on what someone's actually experiencing. Because that's the thing, is that we can all agree that if we look at a stop sign, at least in the United States, a stop sign is red. We all could agree that the stop signs are red in the United States, and I think most of the world as well. But, there's got to be somewhere that they probably aren't. So we'll say, like, at least for America, they're red. But the problem is that, can you tell me what red is to you? Because the best we can do is we can all point to objects that are the same color and say, oh, these are all this color. They all share this color. But the thing is, like, what can you explain to somebody else what red looks like to you? And that's the thing, is that ultimately you can't. You can only compare it. So what I see as red and what other people see as red, we can agree are all red. But what that red looks like to me is going to look completely different to you. Or it could be. It might not. But it absolutely could. Because how do you prove what someone's actually feeling and thinking and experiencing on their own? We can all try and speak about what's going on in our heads. But we can never truly, like, express it in a way that can be measurable and chartable. And so, despite the fact that we really want to understand how people's minds work, we have this barrier that kind of prevents the ultimate expression of of actual trackable data. And that's the fact that everything we say is subject to our interpretation of our minds, and our minds could be interpreting things in ways that just don't make sense to other people. That's why mental illness is so interesting. And mental illness is such a bad term for it anyway, because it's more like mental diversity. That'd be a better word for it, because, like, mental illness implies that you have to be medicated. But there's a lot of us that face a lot of these differences and struggles with mental issues that don't need medication. They just need compassion and understanding. People sometimes say that, oh, people today are too soft, or, like, people are too woke, or whatever those terms are. I don't care about that. Like, and you can have the political reasoning for either side of it. I don't really care. I'm talking purely about mental issues. And it's not that at all. I think the problem is that we started realizing that as we started communicating with each other so much more rapidly with the internet, is that we've learned that actually a lot of us think very differently from each other. What we've always assumed is, like, this is how people are, and we've actually learned that actually that's not the majority. It's not the majority at all. What we've always assumed we knew about the way people interpret the world and the way that we feel about things and the way that these things play out is actually shockingly inconsistent. And so some people are trying to be more inclusive and recognizing that people are all abroad this very wide train of normalcy. And that's why it's like, it's unfortunate that we are so quick to label people to be certain types of people, personalities, or have certain inconsistencies or personalities or disorders or conditions. We tend to put all these labels, and notice that the words like disability or illness or conditions, like, these are what we use to describe people's mental states being different from each other, but they're also, like, connotatively derogatory types of terms, like the idea that, like, there's something wrong with you. But we're quickly learning that, like, no, everyone's got stuff wrong with them. It's just, what flavor do you have and to have? Like what we consider normal is the vanilla of mental states. But you gotta admit that it's also the most boring and the least likely to be able to do anything of its own volition, to be able to make any change or marked expression. So, like, I don't think it's bad to have people who have differences of feeling and opinions, whether that even be fears or inconsistencies or just oddities. We should be embracing and celebrating those differences, but it can also be difficult because when they're different from us, the things that work for us don't work for them, and you get these types of issues. I bet, how much you want to bet? I would want to put money down that this scenario that's being cooked up about like the disagreement and like the miscommunications and the disastrous like results of such between Chihaya and Lucia are based on a real event that happened to the writer, because it feels too human to just be made up on the spot. Now, whether they were actually involved or just like a watcher, like on the sides like Kotarou, watching two people fight it out like this, it just feels too real right now. Like, we know that down the line there's going to be some kind of big reveal and like more like narratively like supernatural stuff going on, but this situation feels so human. I think it's based on a real event that happened between friends. And so we're getting this really good glimpse into this like idea that like they both want to be friends with each other. They both want to be on good terms. They don't even have to say, oh, I want to be best friends or anything. No, it's just simply like they both want to have like positive relationships with people. And the only reason why they're not is just because they're speaking different languages mentally. And it sucks that they both walked away from the situation feeling terrible. Like, no one's winning, everyone's losing.
辛いことがあって、深い心の傷を持ってるって聞かされてたのに、それを真剣に考えなかった。
Exactly.
未だに一時たりとも手袋を外せないくらいに、今も心の傷が癒せていないのは分かってるはずなのに、それを軽んじて、あんな軽率なことを。最低なのは私じゃないですか。あんな程度でひょいと花が受け取れる程度の悩みだったなら、そんなのとっくに乗り越えてますよ。
At least she's thinking about it clearly now.
それが乗り越えられないくらいに深いからこそ、彼女は未だにこうして辛い思いをしているというのに、そんなのちょっと考えればわかるはずなのに、どうして私はあんなことを、この花さんの気持ちも考えずに。ちーちゃん。
Once Kotori pats her head to comfort her, Chihaya can no longer hold her tears back.
私、最低です。やっぱり友達なんて作れないんだ。
Aww. Yeah, and remember, like, that's actually kind of a jab, but remember, like, it's funny because like, that's something that was in her route, like the idea that Akare's, like, I don't know if it might have been something that happens before or not, but I don't know if we're privy to it if we aren't, like, on track for her route. Because the idea that Akare, like, her only instruction for Chihaya was make friends. And, like, she was just like, she genuinely was like, I don't know how, I've never made friends, like, I don't know how that works. And this is kind of like that herald back to that. Now isn't the time for me to interrupt. I have to give her room to let it all out, vent out all her feelings. For a while, we silently listened to Chihaya's outburst of emotions. Yeah, I figured as much.
ルチアも深く後悔している。短期は損期だ。
The next day, I hear from Suzuru that turns out class rep feels exactly the same way as Chihaya. Yeah, it's just too bad that they're like oil and water when they get together. In other words, both of them want to reconcile with each other. Each of them feels that they're the one at fault.
花に触ったら死ぬわけじゃない。多少苦手だとしても、あそこはルチアがこらえるべきだった。
Alright, hey, I get that, and you're fair. That's kind of a fair point, but I would also argue that when she's the one who's having the uncomfortable feelings, she shouldn't have to feel like it's her responsibility to just deal with it. Those feelings are real just because other people don't experience them. That's a very dangerous way to proceed through. But at the same time, like, if it comes down between, like, just dealing with discomfort for a little while or never having friends, I think I see Suzuru preferring her to just be uncomfortable. If she did, she wouldn't have gone through all that hurt, right?
そうではあるが。
Class rep's got it hard too, huh? The germophobia of hers.
本人だって直そうとはしてる。あれでも、昔に比べればだいぶマシになった。
Oh man, can you imagine? In the end, when it comes to emotional wounds, the only one who can heal them is your own self. There's no other way but to face your inner demons. No one can make you do that. It's not something that should be forced upon you. I guess it was a rash decision to bring those flowers. Yeah! Even though Chihaya brought them with good intentions, I should have stopped her. I'm also partially at fault here for thinking it would have turned out okay.
時間は巻き戻らない。後悔しても遅いし、誰が悪いわけでもない。
Good grief, Suzuru, you're super wise. So then who do I blame? The two of them want to make up with each other, but they can't.
山嵐のジレンマだ。 近づきすぎるばかりが愛情じゃない。
Never heard of that before. The Hedgehog's Dilemma? The Hedgehog's Dilemma is one of Sophenhar's famous allegories. If hedgehogs that are friendly try to get close to one another, they hurt each other with their spines. Being close to someone doesn't mean sticking together with them. It's best for people to be kind to each other and give just the right amount of space.
今回の一件でルチアも自分と向かい合ういい機会になったと思う。きっと遠くない将来過去の古傷を乗り越えてくれると信じてる。
Can we bottle up that optimism and like we could probably sell it for a lot. Like that optimism is pretty awesome. Yeah, since the class reps who's managed to get where she is today with those scars, I'm sure she can conquer them. A friend would throw their support behind her. Friends won't poke their noses into her business trying to make her fix her issues. That's just forcing your own ideals onto her. Again, you can help people in these situations overcoming phobias, but they have to co-sign with that. You can't just thrust it on them and just say, hey, just deal with it. It's like, no, you have to, they have to want to change and have to be willing to take those steps. And they have to also understand that, like, as a friend, while you're going to encourage them and you might push them, you'll never push them to a breaking point. Those hedgehogs sure give us a lot of trouble, though. They want to try and get along, but those darn spines are in the way.
滑稽だ。なんとかしたい。
I agree. But what then? The two of us sigh in exasperation.
よう、ボンクラ。神戸から聞いたぜ。どじりやがったな。
Yeah. Oh, it's you, Yoshino. Yeah, you heard right. I screwed up good. Serves me right.
そのせいで、今日の教室の空気は最悪だぜ。とっととなんとかしろ。
お前はなんとかしないのか。
俺は世界と渡り合う男だぜ。日本のこんなちっぽけな町の女同士のくだらねえ喧嘩の仲裁なんてミニマムな真似は
Then you have no room to
専門
complain.
外なのさ。
小太郎、こいつ嫌なやつ。
About 90% yes.
刺さったトゲは早く抜かねえと腐り出すぜ。もたもたしねえで解決しやがれ。
Yeah, I got it. Is there anything we can do to get those two hard-headed girls back on the good terms?
それを考えるのがてめえの仕事だろうが。ご町内は任せろと豪語したんだろうが。
He's got you there. You're right. So darn right. Sorry about the classroom, such a mess. Just bear with it a little bit longer. I'll fix it, I swear.
互いに仲直りしてってんなら、顔さえ合わせれば何とでもなるだろう。
Oh, the classic throw them in a room and lock the door and just wait until they finally work it out?
要は、顔を合わせる口実を作るだけの話だ。
You're right. Some kind of pretense for them to get together, though. Gotta be something. Maybe a visit her again?
ルチアの家へ押しかけるのは良くない。ルチアは部屋に私以外の人間をあげたがらない。
Again, this is the other issue, is like that's her safe spot. That's her place of refuge from even her own fears, right? So taking a source of stress into the one place that she feels that she can actually be herself and express herself, that's like, you're just gonna make her feel cornered. That's not gonna help anybody. No, what you need is a bound by duty. Are we going on a class trip anytime soon? Because if you could work it out so the two of them were in a group together, like just the two of them, on a field trip even, where they have to stay together, that could work. Because Lucy would be bound by her duty as a class representative to not just like be completely dismissive, and Chihaya would initially be stubborn and stupid, but she also has her intentions, and eventually they work their way out. So give them enough time and they might actually make a progress. What then? You mean to say our entire visit yesterday was a failure from the start?
やれやれ。ざまあね。女二人を呼び出す口実一つ作れねえとは。せいぜい二人でない知恵を絞り合ってな。
小太郎、あいつ嫌いだ。
I know. Don't worry, I'm with you there. Yoshino smirks sarcastically, trying to act all cool. He waves his hand at us in ridicule, turning around and leaving. Then he turns back to us, leaving some parting words.
駅前に新しくオープンしたカフェがあるだろう。そこは巨大パフェが売りらしいぜ。すっげえ量らしくて、何分かで完食するとタダになるって話だ。
You know what? That is something they share. They're both demons with food. Oh, right. There's that new place, huh? Kind of surprised a bad boy like Yoshino checked that place out.
俺とてめえで 胃袋の度胸試しでもするかと誘おうと思ったんだが。
So that parfait place is a kind of promotion going on, huh?
俺とてめえみてえな腐れ縁を決着するのにちょうどいい2人前の巨大パフェがあるらしい。
Or, Yoshina, are you trying to settle a difference or take me on a date? I'm not sure.
2人で45分以内に完食するとタダだが、オーバーしたら5000円取られるってスリリングな代物らしいな。
Dang, though, 45 minutes. This thing must be a monster. If they can confidently say, I don't think 2 people could finish this in 45 minutes. Because parfaits are by design very liquidy type materials, which tend to go down and get digested fairly quickly. So it must be insane.
てめえが無様に鼻からクリーム垂らして自腹を切るところを見たかったが、そいつはまた今度にしてやるぜ。
Yep, Yoshina, you're trying to sound intimidating. This just sounds like you want to take us on a date. Yeah, you and I can settle the score after this whole thing blows over.
男2人でパフェがつつきてえとは、俺も焼きが回ったな。
Yoshino! You're a lifesaver, man. A real buddy. Suzuto also understands what Yoshino is getting at. She's nodding her head up and down at high speed. Yeah, I got it. Can't let this chance slip us by. And Cloudfrap okay with sharing in a parfait, though.
多少の抵抗はあるだろうが、スプーンを共有するのでなければ、多分大丈夫だ。
Okay, I'm actually surprised. Actually, does she even like parfaits?
ああ、大好きだ。サンマが入ってたら食べなかった。
Why would you even put sorry in that? But I'll leave the rest of the fishing lectures for that. Yeah, it's like, she just loves fish, I think. Like, she just is a fish fanatic. Anyway, the two of them regret what they did this. This is the perfect timing. They're just so awkward, you know? I feel like if I tell them I'm going to host a getting back together event, join in and reconcile with the other all you want, I doubt they'd actually take me up on that. We'll need to come up with a scheme.
計略
Basically, we'll have to make it look like Class Rep invited Chihaya, and Chihaya invited Class Rep. Oh, that's dangerous. Knowing their personalities, if they know they're being invited by the other, they'll definitely join. This is risky bisky. Alright, we're gonna have to see about the massive Monster Parfait Challenge next time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for listening to my rambling. I think it's really good, though. It's good to be able to sit and reflect about, like, the other mind's issue and talking about perspective, because I think it's a really important thing that a lot of times we get caught up in the sauce and lose track of. The fact that, you know what, the reason why people might say things we disagree with might not even be that they just, like we often like to attribute that, oh, they're just idiots, they don't understand, or they're just like, I don't know, politically motivated or whatever. I don't care. Like, I think 9 times out of 10, those aren't right. I think that usually it's just, we're working with a lot, with very little information, and the world doesn't respect you unless you sound confident, you know? And so, I think that pushes a lot of people to try and sound like an expert on subjects that they actually don't know all that much about. Isn't it like the most dangerous person isn't somebody who doesn't know anything, it's the person who knows enough to think they know everything. And, so, yeah, unfortunately, we live in a world full of people who think they know enough to know that they know everything. And I've fallen into that trap before, too, like everyone does. And I think we need to be able to take that step back and be able to recognize, you know what? Just because I feel like I understand the world, how it works, and how things happen, that there could be completely different perspectives that completely change the script and mean that I actually don't know anything about what other people are going through. And thus, if you ever catch yourself saying, like, oh yeah, I get this, I know why they're feeling this way, or I know what they're doing or going through, or you should just put the brakes right there and be like, wait a minute. It's physically impossible for me to actually know what someone's going through. So instead of assuming that they just think like I do, I should take what they say at a grain of salt, what I think is with a grain of salt, and try and listen more than I express. But, I don't know. I hope you all have a good week. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I certainly did, and I'm excited for this month of February. It's always this interesting one, especially, it's actually fun, because, like, I remember being single, February is a mixed bag, because there's a lot that can happen, and a lot that usually doesn't happen. But then when you're in a committed relationship, it's pretty chill. You're just kind of like, oh, let's just try and do something fun today. So, anyway, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel, for being a part of this wonderful experience and this wonderful channel. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and until the next video watching me, you'll see me next. I'll see you there.